John Rambo was a former elite soldier, a veteran of the U.S. Army Special Forces unit, and a Medal of Honor recipient for his service in the Vietnam War. During his time in combat, he was captured and brutally tortured in a prison camp. It's 1980 in the United States. A lone traveler with a distant look and a faint smile arrives at a quiet lakeside settlement. He walks up to a modest home near the shore and asks two women if they know the man he served with in Vietnam. The women turn out to be his buddy's mother and sister. John shows them a worn note with their address and an old photo of their son beside him in uniform. The mother's face hardens as she explains her son died last year of cancer. Brought it back from Nam, she believes. Agent Orange, the defoliant used during the war, was to blame. The toxic chemical destroyed jungles and ruined lives. Stunned and speechless, John gently hands her the photo and walks away, the grief quietly crashing down on him. He follows the open highway. By nightfall, he reaches a small town in Washington state called Hope. Local Sheriff Will Teasel, a man who knows every face in town, notices the stranger right away and takes an instant dislike to him. Rambo's long hair and the American flag on his coat rub Will the wrong way. He assumes trouble before a word is even spoken. John says nothing, just keeps walking, offering no charm or explanation. Will offers him a ride, and after a moment's pause, John gets in. He tells the sheriff he's headed to Portland, but Teasel doesn't buy it. Portland's in the opposite direction. When John says he just wants something to eat, Will tells him the nearest diner is 50\text km out of town. The message is clear, he wants him gone. Will takes pride in keeping Hope clean and quiet. A drifter like John, silent, intense, unfamiliar, feels like a threat to Will. Trouble is better stopped before it starts. So, at the edge of town, he drops Rambo off and warns him not to come back. John says nothing, calm on the outside. His military discipline holds back whatever's stirring inside. As a light rain begins to fall, he turns around and walks straight back into town. He doesn't even wait for the sheriff's car to disappear. He knows how unfairly he was treated, and he's not about to let it go unchallenged. Will sees him and cuts him off again. This time, John doesn't even acknowledge him. When the sheriff grabs his arm, John shakes it off with sharp precision. That's enough for Will. He pulls his gun and makes the arrest. A combat knife is found on John's belt. Why would you be carrying a knife like this? Hunting, he says. It's for hunting. But Will ignores the explanation and hauls him to the station. At the jail, things get worse. Will books him for vagrancy, resisting arrest, and carrying a concealed weapon. The other officers mock him, but Will focuses on his own sense of order. He smells the dirt on Rambo and says the drifter needs a wash. John grows more guarded. Everyone here feels like an enemy. He scans the room, noting every detail, from the weapons locker to the barred windows that trigger memories of the prison camp where he was tortured years ago. It's unbearable to feel like a prisoner again, this time in his own country. He shuts down, refuses to speak, and resists being searched. Deputy G yanks the dog tags from his neck and reads the name, John Rambo. Even knowing he's a soldier earns him no respect. When they try to fingerprint him, he fights back. Teasel walks in and threatens him with a 90-day incarceration plus a $250 fine. He sets the court date for 10:00 a.m., and tells the officers to clean up the prisoner. Later, as John is forced to undress, they finally see the deep, brutal scars covering his body. One young officer, Mitch, starts to question who this man really is. He wants the sheriff to be told, but G is beyond patience. He spins Rambo around and smacks him hard with a baton. Then comes the final humiliation. They hose him down with high-pressure water, grinning it like it's a game. When they try to shave him with a straight razor, the trauma overwhelms him. Flashbacks to Vietnam flood his mind. His breathing turns sharp and heavy until he snaps. In a blur of motion, John takes out G and two more officers. His training takes over, swift and ruthless. He escapes the station, grabs his knife on the way out, and bursts into the street. Outside, he knocks a man off his motorcycle and rides off into the rain. G rushes out with a rifle, ready to shoot, but Teasel stops him. The street's too crowded, there are too many people, and Rambo is already gone. Rambo hits the gas, tearing down the road with the sheriff close behind. But as the chase veers off the pavement and into rough terrain, John begins to gain the upper hand. Teasel radios for backup but loses control of his car on a steep hill and crashes, flipping violently down the slope. Rambo's bike can't handle the drop either. He abandons it and takes off on foot, disappearing into the mountains. You're finished. You've gone as far as you're going to go. Cold and drenched by the rain, he stumbles across an abandoned construction camp deep in the woods. There, he scavenges rope and heavy fabric, crafting a makeshift cloak to shield himself from the elements. Back in town, Teasel escalates the manhunt. He brings in K-9 units and a helicopter, determined to flush Rambo out. The dogs pick up his scent. John keeps moving north, guided by the compass hidden in the handle of his knife, but the sound of the search party grows louder behind him. He climbs higher, finally reaching the top of a mountain where there's nowhere left to run. As he begins scaling down a sheer cliff above a roaring river, a helicopter suddenly appears overhead. G is inside, armed and ignoring orders to take Rambo alive. He shouts at the pilot to hold the chopper steady, threatening to shoot if he doesn't. "I swear to God, I'll kill you." Bullets rip into the cliffside as John clings to the rock face, knowing his luck won't last. With no other choice, he leaps. On the way down, he grabs hold of tree branches to break the fall. It saves his life, but he lands hard, tearing open his right arm. Above, G keeps searching but can't see through the trees. Then, from the shadows, Rambo hurls a rock at the helicopter's windshield. The pilot jerks in panic, and G is thrown from the open door, crashing to his death on the rocks below. Rambo checks the body, no pulse. He takes the rifle and slips into the forest, following the riverbank. When Teasel finally finds G's corpse, there's no word from the helicopter crew, just silence. Using the tools in his knife, Rambo stitches up his shoulder. Then he moves toward the search team, hands raised, but Teasel, standing on a ledge, tells him to freeze. He won't listen. With rifles aimed straight at him, John backs away, tense and cautious. Then Teasel opens fire, the others follow. Rambo dives behind the rocks and vanishes into the trees. Teasel tries calling in a helicopter to recover G's body. "G's dead, all right. Where the hell is that goddamn chopper?" But the worsening storm grounds all aircraft. Over the radio, the truth finally surfaces. John Rambo is a decorated Vietnam veteran. Tensions rise. The deputies start pointing fingers, blaming the sheriff for pushing too hard. Teasel grabs Mitch and forces him to look at G's body, swearing that he'll get justice for his fallen friend. The dogs press on through the rain, but the conditions grow harsher, and so does the mood among the men. Meanwhile, Rambo, armed now and fully in survival mode, sets traps throughout the forest. He shoots one of the handlers in the leg, then uses a decoy to lure the dogs in and kills them. Teasel won't quit. He urges his team forward, but the forest belongs to Rambo. This is his world. With his knife, he slices through the underbrush and the men chasing him. One by one, he disables them, quietly, efficiently. The forest becomes a war zone. Chaos takes over. Soon, only Teasel is left unscathed. Rambo corners him, striking fast before the sheriff can react. There's a knife at his throat. John could have killed every last one of them, but he didn't. He just wants to be left alone. After making that clear, he spares Teasel and vanishes into the woods, taking a police radio with him. As the wounded are pulled from the forest, reporters swarm the area, and state police begin arriving, but Teasel refuses to step aside. This is still his operation. Now backed by reinforcements, he plans to finish what he started. Then Colonel Sam Trautman arrives. "I trained him. I commanded him in Vietnam for 3 years. He tells the officers that John was the best soldier he ever had, able to survive without food, water, or support, even under the worst conditions." Trautman is stunned anyone's still alive. He warns Teasel to let go of his pride and call off the hunt. Give Rambo space. Let the military bring him in when he's cooled off. But Teasel refuses to back down. He won't be made to look weak now. He has 200 trained officers at his disposal, and he's confident they'll box Rambo in. As Trautman walks away, he leaves a grim warning: start preparing coffins. Teasel catches up and tells the colonel to come with him. While the town braces for chaos, Rambo survives quietly in the wilderness. He hunts a wild boar for food and sets up camp in an abandoned cabin deep in the woods. Using the stolen police radio, he listens in as officers try to make contact, urging him to surrender, but Rambo says nothing. Hoping to calm the situation, Teasel asks Colonel Trautman to reach out. They also plan to trace the radio signal. When Trautman uses military call signs, leader to identify Baker Team, Rambo, Raven, and Vulture, it catches Rambo off guard. The colonel starts naming members of their old unit one by one. John finally responds, reporting that he's the only one left alive. Trautman offers his condolences and pleads with him to surrender, but Rambo says, it's too late. It all began when the sheriff drew first blood. Then the line goes silent. It's enough though. The trace reveals his location. At dawn, officers move into the mountains, but once again, Rambo slips past them. He nearly kills a young hunter before realizing the kid poses no threat and lets him go. But the other hunters aren't so lucky. They spot Rambo and fire warning shots to alert police. John finds an abandoned mine and rushes inside. The officers surround the entrance and open fire, not expecting him to return fire with an automatic rifle. A lieutenant gives him 3 seconds to surrender. When there's no answer, they fire a rocket into the mine. The blast triggers a cave-in, sealing the entrance, but Rambo escapes deeper into the tunnels just in time. Outside, the officers celebrate, snapping pictures and declaring victory. When Teasel arrives and sees what's happened, he's furious. His orders not to fire were ignored again. Now they'll need a body to end this cleanly. Trautman arrives and once again challenges the sheriff's ego, but Teasel, worn thin and still chasing control, storms off. With the bulldozer still hours away, he heads back to the station, exhausted. Meanwhile, in the pitch-black mine, Rambo discovers old barrels of fuel. He lights a torch and pushes forward, only to slip waist-deep into cold water. Hoping the underground stream leads somewhere, he follows it until a swarm of rats attacks. Fighting them off, he notices the torch smoke rising and follows the airflow. It leads him back to the surface. At the same time, Teasel finds Trautman in a local bar. Calmer now, the sheriff apologizes. He asks what Trautman would have done in his place. He admits he nearly killed Rambo himself, but something made him hold back. Trautman doesn't have an answer. It's been too long since he saw the man John became. They assume he didn't survive the cave-in, but neither is entirely sure. Rambo is very much alive. He spots a convoy on the highway and jumps onto a military truck. Climbing into the cab, he holds the driver at knife point and learns the vehicle is carrying M60 machine guns and ammunition. He throws the man out. The hijacking is quickly reported to police. Teasel gets the call, Rambo's back, alive, and armed. As John drives, a patrol car opens fire, shattering the truck's side window. He forces it off the road, crashing it into a parked vehicle, then smashes through a roadblock and charges into the heart of Hope. At a gas station, he crashes the truck. Fuel bursts from the pumps, and he lights the trail, triggering a massive explosion that cuts off pursuit and plunges the town into chaos. Now carrying the M60, Rambo walks into Hope, ready for war. Teasel declares a state of emergency and orders everyone to shelter in place. Safety. Please evacuate the streets immediately. Inside the station, Trautman tries once more to talk sense into the sheriff, but Teasel lashes out, accusing the colonel of siding with Rambo all along. He grabs a weapon and orders Trautman to leave. The colonel doesn't argue. He warns Teasel again, this won't end well. He offers to speak to John himself, the only man who might still reach him, but Teasel refuses to give up his town. As emergency crews battle fires, Rambo stays hidden in the shadows. Teasel climbs to the station's attic, suspecting John is coming for him personally. He checks the roof while gunshots echo through the streets. Rambo's shooting out transformers and blacking out entire blocks. He fires into storefronts to scatter the police, then sneaks into a gun shop and sets off a chain reaction by igniting the powder and ammo. The explosion rocks the street. Teasel scrambles, unsure where the next shot will come from. Then Rambo opens fire on the police station itself, tearing through the structure. He enters the building, knowing Teasel is above him. The sheriff fires first, but John blasts upward, sending him crashing through the skylight. Teasel hits the floor, wounded. Rambo stands over him, ready to finish it. But before he can pull the trigger, Trautman's voice cuts through the smoke. The colonel tells him to stop. Teasel groans from the floor, still throwing insults, calling John insane, but Trautman doesn't flinch. He speaks with calm authority, warning that if Rambo keeps going, the full weight of the U.S. Army will descend on him, and no one will walk out alive. Finally, Rambo speaks. He breaks, unleashing everything he's held in. He didn't ask for this. He served his country, he fought its war, but when he came home, he was tossed aside. In Vietnam, he handled millions in military tech. Now he can't even hold down a job. No one respects him, everyone calls him a drifter. He gave everything and got nothing back. Tears mix with anger. And nobody would help. No one helped. I want to go home. We just call my. His voice cracks as he remembers his friends, all gone. He tells Trautman how one of them exploded on a landmine right in front of him. That image never left. Civilian life never offered healing. He can't sleep, can't talk to anyone, so he talks to the ghosts of the men he lost, and every year the pain only gets worse. Trautman steps forward and pulls John into a quiet embrace. It's not just a gesture, it's the only safety Rambo has felt in years. For a moment, the weight lifts. With the colonel by his side, he lowers his weapon and surrenders. The war outside ends, and so does the one raging inside him.